Welcome to the Covert Narcissism podcast. I'm your host, Renee Swanson. I am not a therapist, and you are not a victim. I want to start today with a huge shout out to the Facebook group that I started in 2018. This group is called Covert Narcissism Group. And when I started it, my vision for it was a community where neighbors are helping neighbors. That was my goal for this group, and it has become just that. It has become an amazing place for men and women both. Here's some of the things people within the group are saying about it. Thank you for making this space. I don't think you'll ever know how much help and support it's given people. Another person said, thank you for being the conscientious moderators that you are. I really appreciate the time and effort you are putting in to make this space fantastic. I was also on another Facebook narcissism page with really poor moderation that let through, it seemed, just about anything. I left it within a week because it wasn't helpful and it bordered on hurting my progress. The difference you make is incredible. Another person wrote, in all honesty, this group is by far the safest and most comfortable group to talk in. I know it takes work, and I always appreciate it. This group was instrumental in helping me heal as much as I have. And the comments go on and on. You know, in a world where the community is struggling, neighbors don't know each other, friends are very spread out from each other, families are throughout multiple states and barely talking sometimes, we need community. A place where we are safe and welcome, where our thoughts and our feelings matter. So I am so grateful for this Facebook group. For the members that are there, you make this group what it is. For the team that volunteers their time to moderate this group 24/7. I want to include a big shout out to Eleanor Marks, the head of that team. I am so thankful for the organization, the work that she puts in to make that team what it is. Thank you, everyone, for proving the power of community. If you're not part of that group, come on in and join us. It's the Covert Narcissism Group on Facebook. Now let's dive into today's topic. Emotional abuse consumption. Now let me explain what I mean here. So I want you to imagine that you have a husband and a wife, and I'm going to put it this way, but I know very well it could go the other way around. So the husband hits his wife 2 times every month. But just 2 times. Now, you never know what it's going to be about, what's going to set him off. It could be because she forgot to put gas in the car or because dinner was 10 minutes late. You never know. But only 2 times each month, on average. Now, the rest of the month, the other 28, 29 days, he's good. He helps with the chores, he pays the bills, he engages in conversation, he buys her gifts, he plays with the kids. The rest of the time is okay to even sometimes good. So on 2 days, things are really bad, but on the other days, they're just okay and sometimes good. Well, if you think about this, that's like 6% of the time that things are really bad, and 94% of the time that things are really good. Well, so statistically, this is a good marriage, right? She should stay, right? And in fact, she should be grateful. I don't know anyone who would agree with this. Yet, for some reason, when the hits are verbal, emotional, psychological, then we think we should stay. That it really isn't that bad. It isn't all the time. And in fact, it's not that often. Well, I want to address this today. Emotional abuse is often described as insidious, and for good reason. It doesn't have to happen constantly to dominate your thoughts, your emotions, your behaviors, your decisions. Let's go back to that example for a minute, and let's put it on a pie chart. If I put it on a pie chart, so I've got this circle, and on the pie chart, 6% of the time is bad. So we're going to put that in the color red. And the other 94% of the time is fine. And we're going to put that in green. Now, this pie chart that is based only on a clock, okay, the days on a calendar, is mostly green. But beside this, I want to make another pie chart. And on this pie chart, I want you to answer this question. How much of her time is spent worrying about being hit. That pie chart is 100% of the time. For her, this is constant and consuming. Now, again, I want to address that this can be the other way around just as easily. This is a wife who is treating her husband 94% of the time fine, but the other 6% of the time hitting him with her words, putting him down, making fun of him, belittling him, invalidating him. It is no different, and it's not based on gender. Now, maybe the verbal and psychologically destructive behavior is more like 10 to 25% of the time on a clock, okay? And much of the time is this strange okay place, which I'm going to talk about here in a minute. But looking at that pie chart, most of the pie would still be green. And in fact, that 10 to 25% of the time would be spread out in little slivers all the way around. You know, it might look like a peppermint candy where you've got, mostly green, but these little red slivers of bad behavior. Yet again, how much of your time is spent anticipating the abuse, analyzing the abuse, trying to avoid the abuse? 100% of the time. Even if the abuse only happens 10 to 25% of the time, the fear of it, the anticipation of it, and the recovery from it consumes you all the time. Now, let's talk about why that is and what we can do to take back our mental and emotional space. So I want to give you what I call the emotional landmine effect. Imagine walking through a field that you've been told has landmines in it. It's littered with landmines. Now, most of that field would be safe. It doesn't take very many landmines to terrify you. It doesn't take very many landmines to cause you to not walk through that field. In fact, the actual square footage of safe land compared to unsafe, there's going to be a large amount of safe spaces to step. But the unknown paralyzes you. Walking across that field would be terrifying because every step could potentially be fatal. So every step you take would be extremely calculated. Your body would be tense, your heart racing, you're looking around for any sign of the danger, hypervigilantly scanning the ground for any sign of a landmine. And even if you don't step on one today, the sheer fear of what could happen keeps you paralyzed. This is what living with emotional abuse feels like. It's a field littered with landmines. You're constantly bracing yourself for the next explosion, terrified to take the next step, whether that be asking what's for dinner, borrowing a few dollars, or asking them to pick up some milk. You see, these landmines don't come from big things. Even the little things aren't safe. So you overanalyze your words, your actions, and even your tone of voice. Even the simplest of conversations are not simple. You wonder, will this set them off? Am I going to pay for this later? What if I say it wrong? It's not just the abusive episodes that are draining. It's the constant vigilance. Maybe the actual moments of abusive behavior, like I said, only make up 10 to 25% of your relationship. But because of how severe, unpredictable, and unreasonable those moments are, they overshadow everything else. I've said before, the punishment doesn't match the crime. A 3-hour lecture because you forgot to put gas in the car is not reasonable. A 2-day silent treatment because you asked them to mow the grass doesn't match up. The responses you get from a covert narcissist leave a mark. They leave painful wounds inside of you. They condition you to spend your 75 to 90% of the time worrying about what's going to happen next and when it's going to happen again. Let's say your partner lashes out once a week. That might not sound like a lot to someone who's never experienced it. This is why other people don't get it, because it doesn't sound like it's that big of a deal. But for you, it's not just about that one incident. I've talked before about the 1,000 bee stings. This is so repetitive and such an ongoing cycle of behavior that even each single incident has more to it than a single incident. Let me explain what I mean. It's about the hours leading up to it. Trying to think through 50 different ways to say it, 100 different ways to say it to find the right one. You're walking on eggshells trying to prevent it. It's about the aftermath where you're replaying the situation in your mind over and over, trying to figure out what went wrong. What did I do wrong? How could I have stopped it? It's about the days in between when you're on high alert, scanning for any signs that it's coming again. This is the hidden cost of emotional abuse. So when we say that people who have not lived it don't get it, they're only looking at the pie chart that's about the abusive behavior. They don't see the other pie chart. They don't even realize that it exists. They only see the one that's 94% of the time good, or 90%, or even 80%, whatever it is. And these little slivers of, yeah, you got mad at me because I forgot to put gas in the car, they blow it off. But they don't see the other pie chart. They don't see the constant effect of the abuse that's inside of you. This abuse doesn't just take the time it's happening. It takes over your entire life. When you go back to the landmines in the ground, the fear of the unknown is a real thing. Not knowing where the landmines are is terrifying. Even if there was only one landmine and you're in a football field, you got to cross a football field and there's only one landmine in that field. That would still be utterly terrifying. Life with a covert narcissist is full of the fear of the unknown. The emotional abuse is unpredictable. It's predictable in that you know it's always going to come back. So you know the landmine is there, but it's unpredictable in that you never know what's going to cause it, what's going to bring it, what's going to set them off. The abuser might be calm one day, even charming, and the very next day, they're criticizing everything you do. This unpredictability keeps the victims in a constant state of hyper-awareness. You can predict that the abusive behavior will happen. It's the when that's unpredictable. Your brain is working overtime, trying to spot patterns, predict triggers, avoid conflict. You replay past arguments, trying to figure out, analyze it. What went wrong? What can I fix? You imagine future scenarios, rehearsing how you'll respond. It's exhausting. It's consuming. It's no wonder that so many victims feel like they're losing themselves in this relationship. This is what people who haven't lived it don't get. In a healthy relationship, your mental energy is spent on shared goals, on personal growth, on joyful moments. But in an abusive relationship, your mental energy is consumed by survival. You're constantly calculating, how do I keep the peace today? What mood are they in? How do I protect myself? How do I protect my kids? And when you're not actively thinking about it, it's still there. It's like a low-level hum in the back of your mind. It's always there. Even your good days are tainted by the knowledge that it could all come crashing down at any moment. So how do we stop emotional abuse from consuming our minds? The first step is awareness. Recognizing the full impact of the abuse on your mental and emotional space is crucial. It's not just about the incidents themselves. It's about the ripple effects that touch every part of your life. So here are some steps to start reclaiming your mind. Number one, name it. Start by naming what's happening. Call it what it is. Emotional abuse, psychological abuse, verbal abuse. Giving it a name helps you to see it clearly and to begin to separate it from you, your identity, and your reactions. Number two is set boundaries. Now, boundaries are not about controlling the other person. They're about protecting yourself. It might be as simple as saying, I won't engage in this conversation if you're yelling at me. And then walk away. And become a broken record. You don't need to over-explain this. You don't need to find the 100 different ways to say it. This sentence is enough. I won't engage in this conversation if you're yelling at me. Number 3, find support, whether it's a trusted friend, a support group, or a therapist. Having someone to talk to can help you process your experiences and start to see things more objectively. If you are in need of a coach for this, I offer those services. Come find me at covertnarcissism.com. Number 4, focus on self-care. Emotional abuse drains your energy. Self-care is about refilling your tank. It might be as simple as taking a walk, journaling, spending some time with people who make you feel valued. Find some people in your life that don't, understand narcissism and you don't talk about it. Take little breaks from this, little mental vacations from the overwhelming, consumption, the ruminating, and the constant thinking that we do. Number 5 is take small steps toward your freedom. Whether you leave or stay, you've got to get your mental and emotional freedom back. Leaving an abusive relationship can feel overwhelming. You don't have to do it all at once. At least start to separate yourself mentally and emotionally. Start by taking small steps to regain your independence, whether that's building a support system, saving some money, or making a plan. Emotional abuse may not leave visible scars, but the impact runs deep. It consumes you. It consumes your thoughts, your emotions, and your sense of self. You cannot possibly be your genuine self while you're trying to walk across a landmine every day. But here's the thing. You have the power to take back your mind and your energy and your feelings. It starts with recognizing the abuse for what it is and taking small steps. It doesn't matter how small, it's progress toward reclaiming you back. Thank you for listening today. If this resonated with you, please know that you are not alone. Healing is possible, and you deserve a life free from the constant weight of emotional abuse. I am here to support you every step of the way. If you'd like to work with me directly, I offer individual and small group coaching sessions. They're currently available on covertnarcissism.com. Thank you so much for joining me, and I wish you so much peace on your journey of healing. You have been listening to the Covert Narcissism podcast. If you are struggling with covert narcissism in your life, I help people to heal from covert narcissistic abuse. If you are struggling with the isolation, the self-doubt, and the obsessive thinking, then this is the program for you. I offer both group and individual options. This is live, personalized coaching that is specific to covert narcissism. Reach out to me anytime. You can find me at my website, covertnarcissism.com. I'm not a therapist and you are not a victim. I am a coach and you are a survivor. I wish you so much peace on your journey of healing. The information provided by Renee Swanson and the Covert Narcissism podcast is for educational purposes only and is not to be used for diagnosis purposes and not intended to be a substitute for clinical care. Please consult a healthcare provider for guidance specific to your case. This material discusses narcissism in general. It does not claim that any specific person has narcissism and should not be used to refer to any specific person as having narcissism. Permission is not granted to link to or repost this material to support an allegation or a claim that any specific person is a narcissist. That would be an unauthorized misuse of the material and information provided.